Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4107. Today's date is June 17, 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 7:29 a.m. Okay. Alright. So yesterday I didn't really record Artifact. By the way, from last 2 days, I was not able to, I'm not going to the workout. The reason is that like okay, first of all, day before yesterday, why I didn't really went to the workout is because of that I was kind of like a fixing a bug. Like I'm kind of like a building my application, like my app in my Android Studio, and I found a bug, and I thought that I would kind of like simply fix that bug. Eventually it fix it, but it takes kind of like simply my entire day. Yeah, like day before yesterday I was kind of like a sit in front of the computer at maybe 2 p.m, and I kind of like simply get out from that desk at 10 p.m, so probably almost like a 8 hour of sitting in front of the desk. It just feels like that, like kind of like a doing a job. But yeah, okay, so this is what kind of like a day before yesterday happened. The reason was that not went to work out is that I thought that I might gonna fix that bug very quickly, but it does not. It takes a lot of time. Then after that, yesterday was kind of like a things that yesterday I also kind of like encountered with another bug. Okay, what exactly is this thing? What is actually bug? Okay, so bug is a kind of like a thing is that when you make the application, okay, specifically a big application where it has a lot of files and lot of kind of like a simply elements of the files and things and that. So in that situation, there is a kind of like a mistake actually happened, and that mistake corrupt the entire application, corrupt the entire project. Example is this thing that you draw a very beautiful painting. Okay, you draw a very beautiful painting, but you realize that you you kind of like a only made a mistake. The painting that you draw, a kind of like a simply the portrait painting, the kind of like a hand is does not kind of like a like it felt really weird. Okay, you might kind of like a create maybe kind of like a somebody 4 finger instead of 5, so you have to create another finger, or maybe kind of like a remove, or maybe you kind of like whatever. Okay, so this is kind of like a mistake that you created while painting the hand, and then you have to fix that thing. The problem is that it's very easy to create a kind of like a entire painting in a fresh canvas, but it's very difficult to kind of like a fix the mistake in a kind of like a already created the painting, because it's kind of like a thing that when you kind of like a try to create a painting on fresh canvas is kind of like a far more easier, but try to oh boy. Okay, so try to create a kind of like a something try to fix the painting. It's very much difficult, and that's the kind of like a things, that's the kind of like a fixing the mistake in the kind of like a app building, that is called kind of like a bug. And the bigger the project, the it's very difficult to find the bug. Fixing the bug is a kind of like a very easy, but finding a bug is very difficult. Why? because right now I'm kind of like a creating this project, this kind of like application which has almost like a hundreds of files, and because of it has a hundreds of file, and each file has its own code and things and that, finding the code is like, oh my god, this is kind of like a things, and I have to do investigation. Even if I'm kind of like a using the agent, AI agent to kind of like a fixing the things and that, but still agent is also cannot able to find the bug. Like basically it's a kind of like a layer of bugs. Like the bug is a kind of like over there, and this is one layer, this is another layer, this is another layer, this is another layer. You have to kind of like somebody peel out one layer, then another layer, then another layer, another, then you find a bug, and then you kind of like get it out. This is a kind of like a very difficult thing, because you have to investigate hundreds of file, thousands of kind of like elements in their codes and things and that and that and that, and then you have to take the bug and find it's lot of stuff. It's like a really thing, and that's what kind of like a things like a building an application is a kind of like a far more easier, but kind of like a fixing the bug is like a really difficult. And that's why I just think that na ki most of the kind of like a AI softwares are kind of like available, that kind of like a telling you that you could able to be kind of like a build application within a minute. They are kind of like a something building an application on fresh canvas, and it is kind of like a far more easier to kind of like a things and that to try to make sure that bug will not gonna happen. The biggest challenge to kind of like a for AI and for the humans is that fixing the bug, because AI is a kind of like a try to create a software which is try to create an application. The application is kind of like a far more easier to create, or far more it's not have that much complexity, then it's very easy. Like a, let's just say calculator, or let's just say kind of like a somebody that audio recorder, or let's just say weather app. These are kind of like a very simple application, doesn't really have that many things. But if I'm gonna say that ki I am kind of like a creating an application where kind of like a simply audio recording application, where social media application, where people would come supposed to share their artifacts and things and that, then there is a lot of things to figure it out, stuff like that. And there are hundreds of kind of like there are like in my application, how many screens do I have? 1 2 3 4 5, wait, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 10 10. These are the kind of like a 10 kind of like a 10, yeah, 10 screens, 10 11 12 12 13 14 15 15 screen, yeah, 15 screen I have. 15 screen, yeah, these are kind of like a 15 screen I have. 15 screen means like that a kind of like a user interface screen, where user kind of like a see the screen. So I have to be kind of like a create the front end and also the back end of this thing, that how it's kind of like a work and things like that and that. Okay, with kind of like a secure and things and that. So there is a lot of kind of like some stuff. Okay, so that's why I'm kind of like a fixing this error today. Also I have to fix that bug. Like I was kind of like a thinking that probably I will kind of like a build my application maybe within a month. It's not really that, because I'm kind of like a using the agent. So but dude, that is definitely not. Why? Because of that key, like I have to like I think that now one of the most time that I spend on not to building the application but fixing the bug. Yeah, that is a kind of like a thing. And AI does not understand. AI does not have kind of like an opinion and things. It just, AI is a kind of like a really dumb, by the way. Like literally, like what I'm kind of like using the default kind of like a somebody agent, like a default kind of like a model that they use, like a GPT, sorry, not GPT, Gemini 3 point something, 3.5 something. I'm using this model to kind of like a fix the code and things and that, but still is this thing now, there is a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's this thing. Yeah, why do you think that AI is a kind of like a stupid? Not AI is a kind of like a stupid, it's a kind of like a thing that it's a kind of like a tool, by the way. The AI, the way that kind of like a the internet is actually market the AI like a basically you click this and within a click you kind of like a build your application, business and things. It's not. It's not. You are kind of like a thinking like that key like a within a button you kind of like a do this thing with a button you kind of like a do that. It's not actually happened. Why? Because of that key like a basically is this thing, if it is that much easier then kind of like everyone will kind of like create the application and things and that. But no, it's not that, because I don't know, dude. Right now, it's just like that. Now, I will not kind of like create any kind of like opinion at the moment. I think that AI is a kind of like a similar tool. It depends on how you kind of like use the tool and how smartly you use the tool. How like how much smartly that you use the how much smart the answer that it kind of like provided and things and that. So yeah, alright. And I think I'm kind of like in the learning phase and things, but still because of the AI I'm kind of like basically I cannot able to be imagine that kid doing all those things, doing or building the application by myself. I don't really think that I could able to do this thing, nothing really at all. Yeah, thank God I have this agent and that it kind of like really helping me to build this thing. Obviously there are kind of like some sort of problem will gonna come, but still I will figure it out. It's not like that. Okay, so the reason that why I didn't really record the artifact is because of that yesterday is one of my cousin have a birthday, and like I don't want to, but I went there. I don't like basically it's this thing na birthday is a kind of like a things. It's a kind of like a very kind of like a very, I don't know how to supposed to explain. It's a kind of like a things that na after some sort of age, birthday doesn't feel like that. It's a kind of like a thing. Just okay. What is actually my opinion regarding about birthday? Well, let me tell you regarding about my birthday. Okay, do I want to celebrate my birthday? Definitely not. Definitely not. Why? Like, I don't really think that it's a kind of like a some event of celebration. I know like basically most of people kind of like a things that dude, it's a birthday, it's a kind of like a some moment of celebration. You have to celebrate. It's a kind of like a really good thing about your life and things. On this day you have to born on that day. Well, probably is this thing na who is a kind of like a particular person who should supposed to be kind of like a something celebrate this day. The me because I born that day? No. I believe that basically my mother would be kind of like a something should supposed to be celebrated. Like a basically instead of kind of like a celebrating my birthday, I wanted to celebrate her. Like a okay, let me tell you one thing. What exactly is this thing? On this day, like if I'm gonna say at 2nd of September 1993, I born on that day. Okay. So if I'm gonna say I born on that day, so this is my birthday. It's a kind of like a very important day and things and that. But like I will gonna born at some day. Okay, yeah, it's not really that kind of like a things that like a nothing really at all. Like I did not put any kind of like a effort to be exist in this life. Who actually put the effort? My mother. She kind of like a somebody on this day she became mother of somebody. And probably is this thing na if you wanted to kind of like a celebrate something, like basically I wanted to celebrate that a kind of like your mother or kind of like my mother, that kind of like she became the mother because she put the effort for 9 months and things, and even after all those things she kind of like raised me and things and that probably. But still it's most of people are kind of like a disagree with this thing because like usually kind of like a people kind of like a things when they are born they are kind of like a things, but celebration is not a kind of like a things that I wanted to do because like basically celebrating my birthday I feel like nah, I don't want to because it doesn't really kind of like a feel like good. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is a kind of like a things. Do you want to celebrate others' birthday? Well, yeah, I wanted to celebrate others' birthday. Um, maybe my kind of like opinion are kind of like a really mixed, but what I think is that it's a kind of like a things that I wanted to celebrate other people birthday, but I don't know, yaar. Like regarding about birthday, just like really kind of like a things that instead of kind of like a feel like celebration, it kind of like a feels like a kind of like a event. You have to be kind of like a participate forcefully, yeah, because how things are not done. Okay, what if like a basically is this thing that ki your girlfriend have a birthday, okay, what should you supposed to be do? Ah, okay, so I'm kind of like a taking the hypothetical scenario. Okay, yeah. So let's just say that ki my girlfriend or my kind of like a wife or significant other, she has a kind of like a birthday. So in that situation, what is actually my opinion and what is actually I would gonna do? Right now, I don't really have that particular person. So basically, it's this thing that ki, I don't really have that particular person. Okay, but when I will have that particular person, I will gonna respect that particular person. Why? I think that na ki I'm kind of like a thinking from every possible point of perspective. Might be I'm completely wrong, but I'm trying to explain. Okay, like basically is this thing na ki when you like you are kind of like a born as a human. You are a human. Me, you, we are all are human, and basically we have a kind of like a some certain responsibility uh, that we have to be follow. Okay, like what kind of like a responsibility to getting married and things and kind of like a yeah, these are kind of like some stuff. If you are not following that thing, that is okay, but yeah, like in humans we have to be kind of like a get married at some day, we have to make babies. Okay, and this is kind of like a natural laws. Okay, because nature are kind of like a want, natures are kind of like a simply telling you two things: survive and reproduce. These are kind of like a two things that nature wants you to do that, and you have to do this thing. And marriage is a kind of like a things that key kind of like a simply a structure that kind of like you fulfill that kind of like a nature what it kind of like a says and things and that. But the life is not that much kind of like a things like today we are kind of like a living the life are far much more complicated. We do not have just a responsibility of kind of like a survive ourselves and reproduce. We have a kind of like a responsibility of cover ourselves that ki we have to be learn, educate, get a job, earn money, kind of like a somebody then get married and kind of like have kids and things and taking their responsibility and lot of things. It's not just a kind of like a things that ki just nature kind of like give you two responsibility, but because of humans and because we are kind of like intelligence and things and that we are kind of like a create more responsibility to kind of like a things and that. And when we follow that responsibility from man point of perspective, we need a kind of like a companion. Not only just a man, but as a kind of like a woman point of perspective, they also need a companion too. Why companion? Is because of that ki it's really essential for living the life, because there are so many kind of like a consequences will gonna happen if you don't really have any companion, or maybe life get difficult, or maybe kind of like a life get nothing. I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing, but companion is a kind of like a somewhat something really essential. And your companion is like from my point of perspective, uh, the whoever companion will be, she's kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki far more important for me, because of that ki she kind of like a somebody fulfill all the kind of like she kind of like a take kind of like somebody take a lot of load from my mind. Okay, what is actually that load? Family responsibility and things and that because I am really worse. I don't want to take any kind of like a family responsibility or things and that. I just want to do the work and things. I don't know, like am I kind of like a stupid enough things, but I think that na companion is kind of like a far more essential. And obviously is this thing that ki I wanted to kind of like somebody said thank you to her. And how do I supposed to say thank you? Kind of like somebody giving a kind of like a good gesture, like celebrating her happy birthday and things, not too much, not too flashy, just kind of like a from heart to heart, and kind of like a feels like that ki, yeah, this would be kind of like a things that I would gonna do. So if she has a kind of like a birthday and if I wanted to celebrate, I'm not gonna do any kind of like a flashy stuff. I kind of like somebody just kind of like a tell her that thank you and things, and I don't know how do I supposed to be kind of like a somebody celebrate her birthday, but this is I would gonna do to kind of like a somebody just be a thank you and that, and it's kind of like a things. Okay, yeah. What if your companion want to celebrate your birthday? So in that situation, because you kind of like said that you don't really like the celebrating your birthday, but what if someone kind of like celebrating your birthday? Then in that situation, what we're gonna do? Well, basically, is this thing? It's not just kind of like a somebody event of mine. Yeah, I born on that day, but kind of like a somebody is this thing because of my birthday. I kind of like a give the reason of happiness to somebody, and obviously is this thing I don't want to kind of like a steal that happiness. If they are kind of like a being really happy to kind of like a celebrate my birthday, yeah, good. Like I don't really like to celebrate my birthday, but still is this thing that key the people are kind of like a feel really happy to kind of like a celebrate my birthday. So yeah, let them. Okay, I let them do this thing for a day. I might not feel really good, but still okay, fine. Okay, yeah. Why are you kind of like so against the birthday? No, I'm not against the birthday. I am like a basically it's this thing that he um I don't really feel like that ki birthday is a kind of like a thing that accomplishment. Like okay, I might gonna kind of like accomplish so many things in my life. Okay, in the future. I am really proud of that. If I build this application, I am really proud of that. I started recording Artifact at 11th of February 2015. I am really proud of that. These are kind of like so many dates that I did not forget, because it these are dates are kind of like somebody just change forever. It kind of like shaped me the person who I am and things and that and that. And it really helped me a lot to kind of like simply that keep person the way that I wanted to become and things and that and that. I want to celebrate that day. I have kind of like a proud of that date. I didn't really have proud of the date that I born. So I'm not against the birthday. I'm just kind of like somebody giving a little bit less value than my other accomplishment and things and that and that. Okay, but still I have to understand that key happiness is just not just kind of like a your event. It's a kind of like a event of like everybody. If the people are kind of like a really happy regarding about celebrate your birthday and things, then yeah, why not? But there is a limit. Okay, what's the limit? uh okay, let's just say I belong to the kind of like a somebody like a Buddhist community. Okay, and in my community we kind of like a simply look up for Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar is a kind of like a freedom fighter who fight for us when the independence of the India, and they kind of like gave us right, because before the Bhimrao Ambedkar we are considered as a Shudras, and we don't really have that much kind of like a something rights to kind of like evolve ourselves or kind of like build ourselves, nothing really at all. uh, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar kind of like give the rights to the education, give the rights to the kind of like a somebody better structure of the life and things and that. And because of this thing, my father is a kind of like a something kind of like a became as a kind of like a significant something like that, a kind of like a decent amount of success that they achieve. Okay, and because of my father kind of like achieve that thing, I am kind of like a here recording this Artifact kind of like a really good. So basically is this thing in my family tree, like my grandfather was my father's grandfather is a kind of like a like they are kind of like a servant. So it's just not, but Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar kind of like gave the rights and things, and because of this thing I am kind of like standing there recording Artifact and things. Okay, so basically is this thing that key because of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar kind of like gave us right, we kind of like somebody we kind of like somebody look up, we have a lot of proud feeling for them. Okay, Now and I kind of like feel like really admire to this particular person, because the way that that particular person thinks, and in the future point of perspective, it's really good. Okay, now what exactly happened na ki uh, like 14th of April, uh, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was born, and right now we kind of like celebrate as a kind of like a Jayanti of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. It's a kind of like a birthday. Probably we are kind of like celebrating Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Jayanti is like Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar birthday, but the way that we celebrate is like a Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar never really expected that. And that's a kind of like a things like we have like a rallies and DJs and whatnot just in that situation. So basically is this thing, I wanted to ask this question to myself, that ki like I'm kind of like a thinking from very future point of perspective, but still, if I'm became that particular person in the future, I'm kind of like a very vague. I don't want to be, but still, if I became that particular person, okay, and after I die, people are kind of like assembly proud for me, my work and things and that, and they wanted to celebrate my birthday as kind of like a Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Jayanti's birthday, like rallies and things and that, like a lot of stuff. Do you want it? Do you want that ki like a people should supposed to be kind of like a celebrate your birthday as a kind of like a Jayanti things? No, definitely not. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar never really wanted to kind of like a celebrate his birthday like that way. Like the way that we celebrate the birthday, with the way that we celebrate, like it's good, it's great, like having a kind of like a community to kind of like tell us that he, because of that particular person this and that, and it's really good. But I don't know how do I supposed to kind of like give the answer, but it's not a kind of like a things. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar kind of like always be focused on kind of like assembly learn and kind of like assembly things and that. Like not every kind of like a particular person who kind of like achieve so many things in their life, they didn't really want that ki they are kind of like a the day that they born kind of like a celebrate the way that people, it's not okay. Because I don't know, like what I realized that na ki when you kind of like believe more than yourself, then you will kind of like become the blind. So basically, yeah, this is what kind of like a things that key, if you kind of like believe in somebody that key this is kind of like a somebody the big god and things, and that particular person never gonna be wrong and things and that, then you are the blind person. Okay, and this is what kind of like a things, I live in that society where kind of like a somebody, the people who kind of like celebrate the Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Jayanti just kind of like a somebody just blind person. I'm kind of like a way saying a lot of kind of like a controversial thing, but I don't know, I'm kind of like a like basically I also went to the rally, I also kind of like do the DJs and dance and things. Yeah, it's yeah, but deep down I don't know how do I supposed to explain. I am wrong, I am right, I don't know, I'm not really sure. If I'm gonna say this thing, does it create chaos? I don't know, maybe it will. I'm not really sure about this thing. Okay, maybe just my opinion, maybe my opinion would gonna change, maybe something. But you did mention na ki because of somebody kind of like get the happiness of you, or kind of like some people are kind of like feel really happy because of your birthday, then let them celebrate your birthday. Okay, yeah, say so why not kind of like a community celebrate their birthday, like why not do that? Yeah, like it's good, but the okay, let me tell you one thing na. Okay, let me kind of like tell you something. Okay, so what exactly is this thing na ki we are celebrating Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Jayanti. Obviously sometimes it's too much, DJs and kind of like a something, lot of things, sometimes it's too much. Okay, yeah, but kind of like a thing is that na ki it was kind of like a really essential for represent the stand of the community. Like sometimes na, okay, let me kind of like tell you, Ram Navani. No, Ram Navani, Ram is a kind of like a somewhat something frictional or character. Okay. But still we celebrate his birthday, even if that particular person does not live on. This person does not even exist in our entire history timeline and things and that and that. Okay. Still we celebrate that particular person's Jayanti or whatever it is. Okay. So basically what is actually existing na ki when you are living in the society, okay, it's really essential that like it's wrong but it's essential. Essential is what? That key you have to be represent that who you are and what is actually your community and things and that because it's a very important factor. um a Muslim community of people kind of like a celebrate uh, the 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 Ram, no, what exactly is this festival? They kind of like eat something, Eid. Okay, they kind of like celebrate the Eid. The Hindu community of people celebrate the kind of like a Ram Navani or things or Diwali and things and that. Every community of the people kind of like a celebrates something, and that kind of like a represent their culture. There are kind of like a some things that what is at least like a basically is this thing. It create the culture, na. It create the kind of like a some value in the community. Okay, and that is a kind of like a really like a it kind of like a create lot of good things to the community. Okay, you are kind of like a thinking from just your point of perspective, but try to imagine. Okay, I went to like a 14 April kind of like a Jayanti, and in that Jayanti there are a lot of kind of like a vendors are kind of like a selling lot of good stuff, like a food stall, kind of like a something book stall, kind of like a lot of stall, and they kind of like a generate the revenue from this crowd and things and that. Okay, so basically because of the 14th of April, because of the kind of like assembly Ambedkar Jayanti, because of the people are kind of like a celebrating, those are people are kind of like earning money, those are people are kind of like a getting things and that building a statues and things and creating culture. It kind of like a creates somewhat something kind of like a something that key value in their life. They are kind of like a creating statues, they are earning money, they are kind of like supporting their family to kind of like a be a part of culture and things and that. So basically it's this thing na ki what I'm realized that now I might be a kind of like a wrong, I'm not really sure about this thing, but what I realized that na ki culture is not kind of like a decided by one person. Even if that particular person who created that culture, that particular person is not kind of like a decided that what is exactly culture and things and that. Let's just say a kind of like a somebody Jesus who's kind of like exist over here, and he kind of like realized that key what is actually happening Christmas and things and that he might gonna say, dude, like why are you kind of like celebrating my birthday as a kind of like that way and things and that. But Jesus does not really have rights to kind of like somebody do a lot of change as a kind of like a what is actually happening Christmas. Why? Because of that key Christmas does not really created by the Jesus, it created by the people, it created by the culture, it created by the society. Okay, like basically a one person does not really authorize as a kind of like a what kind of like culture that should supposed to be, because culture is somewhat something that resonate where they are from. It's a really good thing, they bound people together. Like it's a kind of like an opportunity that people comes together, they kind of like share their thoughts, things, I don't know, but they kind of like do this thing. They comes together, and it kind of like became a reason to connect together, kind of like do something and that. It add value not only to the community, it value to the kind of like a somebody country, to the people, to the kind of like a somebody the influence. It is that. Okay, so I think that na ki probably is this thing that ki yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't know. I'm not really sure about this thing, but this is what I kind of like some experience, and probably I'm right. I don't know. I'm just kind of like giving my opinion. Whatever. I did really ask the question. It's been almost like a 34 minute. I don't know why, but right now I don't know. It's just like I'm like from yesterday I kind of like a record the artifact. I was kind of like talking about something that just kind of like a very different basically is this thing na ki I do kind of like ask the question to myself regarding about things and that, but sometimes I just wanted to let my mind kind of like just go and things and that and stuff. Okay, yeah, but kind of like I have to be complete the question, because yeah, there I have a lot of questions to ask to myself. Okay, so should we ask? Okay, so basically is this thing, this is a kind of like a silly question. I'm gonna end up question this very easily. Okay, question is, do I listen before giving opinion? That's a really good question. Where is this question actually came from? I read the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and I wanted to implement the value that book taught me. So I went to ChatGPT, kind of like I said, I read this book, I wanted to implement the value, suggest me 20 questions. ChatGPT kind of like suggest me 20 questions. This is one of those questions. Now question it says, do you listen before giving any kind of like opinion? Okay, that's really good. Okay, yeah. Now basically till this now I kind of like simply give my opinion. Okay, yeah. I kind of like give my opinion. Now do I listen while kind of like a things? Well, it's like that na ki, like when we are kind of like a talk, we are kind of like a telling from our mind and things. Okay, yeah. And basically is this thing ki, do we kind of like a listen, like I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing from technical point of perspective. If I'm gonna say, do we kind of like a listen what we kind of like a giving any kind of like opinion? No, we cannot kind of like a listen. Why? Because the kind of like a whatever the opinion that they have, it generated from over here and just yeah. Okay, basically it's this thing that ki it depends on where you kind of like give the opinion. Okay, you are kind of like a 10 people in front of you and you are kind of like giving the opinion. It's good, it's great. Now I'm kind of like giving the opinion, and this kind of like some opinion will kind of like upload it on YouTube platform, and how many people will kind of like listen this thing, yeah, it kind of like effect on that. But what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, the question is not about that. The question is actually about that ki when you kind of like give the opinion, do you kind of like realize that ki how much kind of like a right is that opinion or wrong is that opinion? Like basically is this thing na ki, let me tell you one thing. Okay, it's a kind of like a thing is that na ki the question is that ki have you ever kind of like somebody just like a I don't know. Okay, if I'm kind of like a say, am I listen while kind of like a give any kind of like opinion? The right answer says no, I am not kind of like listening the opinion that I said. Is it wrong? I'm not really sure about that thing. Okay, because I don't know, it's just like that now. If I'm try to review my every stuff that I said, then I might kind of like a judge myself a lot. Why? Because of that key, when we kind of like give the opinion, we just kind of like give the opinion. But when we kind of like listen our opinion, then we are try to judging ourselves, and basically what exactly happened now, we already have a kind of like a very so low self-esteem and things and that. So basically it's this thing that key low self-belief and self-low esteem and things and that we like basically we never really kind of like give the opinion. Yeah, like basically if I'm gonna say is this thing that ki how many people are kind of like give the opinion, people might gonna say everybody's kind of like give the opinion, but practically not. Okay, because of that na ki most of the people, almost like a 90% of the people are just give the opinion, just a blank opinion, nothing really at all. We just kind of like follow the structure that whatever the society created and things and that. Okay, and because of we are not kind of like give the opinion, that's why we are not kind of like somebody express ourselves that much kind of like things. Giving the opinion, or maybe at least like when you kind of like give the opinion, you are not giving the opinion to somebody, you are kind of like giving opinion to yourself at least first. Okay, this is what I believe. Is it wrong, is it right? I'm not really sure, but it add a value in me, so I think it would be good, but I'm not really sure about this thing. But the question is, do I kind of like give the opinion before like listen? I would say no. All right, this is it. Thank you.